Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Good Monday, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
We're pleased to be coming to you in different clothes if you're watching on YouTube. We're recording on a different day, that's why.
Yay!
Yay! Look, we do own other clothes.
Yeah.
We have received a number of emails and messages on Facebook having to do with topics having to do with curriculum. Mm-hmm. Just, different aspects of implementing curriculum. And we really wanted to take a look at those questions and figure out how do we address them? What are the commonalities? Where in one episode, we can maybe address different aspects of it, right? And we think we have figured it out. So that's why today we're going to be talking about the difference between modifying and adapting a curriculum and what both families and teachers should be on the lookout for, basically.
Yeah. Right.
This is a frequent conversation that I have with teachers. The difference between adapting and modifying. When you adapt the curriculum of your school, you are still doing what the purpose and focus of that curriculum is, and you are adjusting it for the actual living people in your room, the children in your room. You may need to make some adjustments. The curriculum might say, for example, and it's just a simple example, read this book to the children, but the children don't have the attention span for that book. So you may have to make an adaptation. And my adaptation suggestion for teachers in that case is usually don't abbreviate the book. Instead, read it in more than one sitting. Put a bookmark in it. Teach children that books, as adult, I don't read one book in one sitting. So put a bookmark in it and teach them that we go back to book. That's an adaptation. I'm not going to finish the book today. I'm going to do a different book later even because I want to go back to this book tomorrow. To even say we're going to do what's in the curriculum, plus I'm going to add something is an adaptation. You're adding something based on the interests of your children. That's an adaptation. Modification is when we completely change the purpose and outlook of a curriculum. And I see people do that a lot. So I want to make everybody aware who listens to us what the differences are in that. And I'm going to give you an example that actually came from one of our preschool peeps. It was a really good example of modification. So, hi, if you recognize yourself out there. We don't like to use names unless we have permission. But hey, we read your email. So here's an example of modification. There's a curriculum, and it says, for example, we are a play-based curriculum, and here are the goals for learning. Right. And there are goals having to do with domains of learning, which are like social, emotional, language, physical development, that sort of thing is a domain. Content areas, which are what we use to call subject areas, literacy, math, science, social studies, right? So you've got domains and you've got content areas, and the curriculum says through play and through fun, intentionally planned activities that are fun for children, here's the standards that we're going to teach or the goals and objectives we're going to teach. Modifying that would be saying, oh, we're play-based, so I don't need to actually teach math or literacy or any of those things. That is different. That's modification. And what you've done in that case, if you have standards you have to meet and objectives and goals you have to meet, which should be given to you by higher up, way higher up. I mean, these come from, in our case, the state, like Alison, right?
Yeah.
Your goals come from where, Alison?
My goals come from the state.
Yep.
And then, underneath that, the Board of Ed for my district.
Correct. So you could be, if you are a public school, your goals are coming from the federal government trickle down to the states.
To the state.
That it trickles a little bit. The states come up with their state standards. They give that to the school systems, and the school systems come up with their methodology for that. A school system, a public school system will pick a curriculum for everybody, right? If you are in a private setting, those standards still trickle down from the federal government to the states. The states have departments that figure out what are our learning goals going to be for the private centers in the state. These are the standards of the state. For example, in our state, New Jersey puts out preschool teaching and learning standards, right? We look at those preschool teaching and learning standards, and we may use those as our goals. And then based on that, we need to have a curriculum that helps us to teach those goals in a high quality way. And so it shouldn't be just a matter of people sitting down and going, okay, let's make up some goals. There are standards for that. So if we want children, even in private settings, to be able to then proceed into a larger system that goes by state standards, we have to use the preschool standards of our state, because they lead, ideally, there's a bridge from one to another, ideally. So, and there usually is. So, we have these standards, and that's what we should be using. It is also very easy to find standards. If you're unaware of them, feel free to send us we can steer you. States have them. So, contact us. But so you have these standards, and then you have to decide on a curriculum, and the curriculum should be goal-based, but also developmentally appropriate. A high-quality curriculum is developmentally appropriate for the children in that age group, and that means it spans development. Development is like a continuum. You have some children on one end, and so a lot of children in the middle.
Large range of.
It is. It's a huge range, and some children who are advanced. So a good curriculum gives you the ability to span that range of development in a way that's right for that age group of children. A good curriculum is culturally responsive. And it can depend on your setting, what that means. If you are in a faith-based school, then it is culturally responsive to what you are trying to teach about your culture, but also respects other cultures and teaches children to respect other cultures, ideally, right? If you are not in a faith-based center, then it is very often, I find, respectful of all cultures, and in being respectful of all cultures, it's almost a culturally neutral curriculum that people can just bring in their own cultures, right? And we can add information about many cultures to it. A good curriculum is also flexible, so that teachers, I'm not saying teachers can't make decisions, teachers actually have lots of decisions in a flexible curriculum, but it has a structure, and that structure is goal-based. So where am I going with this whole long explanation of this thing? Is that parents and teachers need to know what the goals are. What are the standards? What are the standards? What comes out of the federal government to the states? What does the state put out to the Department of Ed or to your Office of Licensing if you're a private center? What is coming out? What do the quality rating and improvement systems that are in nearly every state, if not every state by now, what are their standards? What are they telling you? And when we're talking about standards, if you are listening and you use a tool like Teaching Strategies Gold, or otherwise known as myteachingstrategies.com, to observe and document your assessments of children, those are your standards and goals then, because they cross over to the state. If you use HighScope's core, the core also provides objectives for development and learning that cross over to the standards coming out of the government, and that's why those are your standards. But everything needs to be done with goals in mind. Okay, I feel like I've talked enough. Go, Alice. It's your turn. This is an explanation that I provide all the time, and that I have this frequent conversation with teachers about the difference between adapting and modifying. There are so many times where I go into a class and I say, what you're doing right now, by giving these children a worksheet, you have modified the curriculum. This curriculum is developmentally appropriate because it has no worksheets. It has you teaching. It has you teaching literacy and math and language skills in a developmentally appropriate way for these early learners. And you have modified it by introducing worksheets. You can't do that.
It would be almost like that first example you gave of like the kids don't want to, can't, don't have the attention span to sit that long, and you say, you know what, we're not going to do this book at all then. That would be modifying. If the curriculum that you have says you're supposed to read this book and you just choose not to read that book without even trying to adapt, that would be modifying the curriculum too. Right. And instead you should adapt it so that the children still get it. Yeah. Figure it out.
As you read this book, it has a reason. It meets one of the goals, one of the standards of the world of early childhood. There's a reason a curriculum tells you to do something. The flexibility comes in a couple of places. How do I adapt if I need to for the children who are sitting right in front of me? And what are the interests of these children that I can use to teach based on this curriculum? A good curriculum gives you that flexibility where it's saying, okay, here's what we would like you to focus on, but the way that you focus on it is dependent upon the interests of your students.
Yes. And that's where you can kind of, as a teacher, be more flexible in things, not what you're, not what books you're using, not what you're like throwing in a worksheet. That's not your options. Yeah. Your options lay in like, let me know my student population, what their cultures are, what they're interested in, and then adapt the curriculum to that.
And a curriculum, according to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, who has defined curriculum for us, NAEYC, better known as NAEYC, they have defined curriculum for us. And curriculum are the knowledge, skills, and understandings that children need to have to succeed in the future.
Yeah.
So there you go. Your curriculum should be the knowledge, skills, and understandings. But it's not only that, said NAEYC. NAEYC said it's also the plans to accomplish that.
Right.
That's included in the curriculum. And if you're taking your child to a school for the first time, or they're starting a new grade, or you're unaware right now about the details of your child's curriculum, you should ask those questions. What are the goals? What you need to ask if you're a parent is, what are the goals of this curriculum? What are we hoping the children, what skills are we hoping they will practice and maybe achieve? And how are you doing that?
How are you getting there?
How are you getting there? What is the path? The curriculum is the path.
Yeah.
So how are you getting my child there? And how can I support that curriculum at home and not depart from it? We're not modifying how the children learn these goals.
Right.
We are adapting. And sometimes that adaptation can also take place at home. So do you find in your class, Alison, that you struggle with that difference between adapting and modifying?
Yes. I'm going to tell my
Everybody
story.
Does. That's why I say it so often. That's why I know how to explain it.
Because we also, so I'm going to tell my story that I was starting to tell Cindy before this. Is that
I made her stop. And
she made me stop.
I said, you have to tell this story on the podcast.
Because she might yell at me. I'm not sure. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So I don't know if you all have been listening, but I'm really, really into science. And I talk about it, I think, on this podcast often, how I really love science. And because I love science, I do science pretty much every day in my classroom, which I teach kindergarten, and they actually tell me I should be doing it like not every day. Okay. But that's different. It's kindergarten. And because we do it every day, we are now ahead of where everybody else is in kindergarten. The kids know everything that they are supposed to do up until this point.
In what? So, in just science or in everything?
No, not everything. So like the curriculum right now for the kindergarten is they were learning about what the needs of plants were, and we did that, what the needs of animals were, and we did that, and then what do people need? And we got through all of that pretty quickly because we do it every day because I'm really into science, and so we did it often. Whereas like, I think the other teachers kind of take breaks in between and they'll switch to another subject. So now we are, we got to a point where I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to go ahead to the next subject, which is totally different. Okay. It's like pushes and pulls or something like, it's totally different. Totally different.
That's
subject.
A fun one.
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't wait. But I didn't want to go too far ahead of the other classes. So I stopped and was like, let's take a break. But I still wanted to give them science every day. So now I do more of like a project-based. Like I kind of went by their interests. I asked them what they wanted to learn about or maybe go into more depth of something we already learned. And they decided that they wanted to learn more about the needs and how they live Arctic animals up there. Because they were like, it's just so cold up there. What's the difference? How could they be up there? So we did an entire unit on that, which wasn't necessarily not in the curriculum. I mean, we still had all the standards. We still went through all the standards. I made sure that the standards that were in the science curriculum still met it all. And we just kind of went more in depth. Now,
can I jump? Okay, no, you're still.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Jump in.
All right. So if you were one of my clients and you were telling me this story, here's basically what I would say. I don't know if I would phrase it the same way because we're such good friends.
Right.
But here's basically what I would say. You started out the conversation by saying, we're doing more science because I like science.
True. Which, it rubbed off to the kids, and the kids love science. So
that would be my next question would be, are you actually really carefully observing the children to make sure that they are in fact loving it? That would be my question. I did.
Question. No, so I did. I made sure. Yeah.
Right. Are the children interested in it? Because we're always in early learners, including kindergarten and even first, second, third grade, which is included in the early learning age groups. We should always be following the interests of the children. Here's what I find with adults, and it's true for me too. So I love history, and I'm good at writing, and I'm really comfortable in that world. And so when I was a teacher, I'm pretty sure that's where I leaned. I leaned toward literacy. I leaned away from science because science is not my thing. So science for me as a teacher was more like, okay, we have to do this science because it's part of the curriculum and it's part of the standards. But this isn't my comfort zone. My comfort zone was different. And I'm always warning teachers to be careful not to dive so deeply into their own comfort zone that the children who have different comfort zones are kind of being left in the dust. So that's just something for you to think about. Yeah. Also, sometimes when we're excited about something, when I'm doing something literacy based with children, because I'm excited about it, the children will act excited about it, but that's not necessarily how they're feeling. So keep a close eye on that would be my advice. Yeah. If you are adding to the curriculum, then you may be just adapting it to the interests of your children, and that's fine to add in that way. But you have to make sure that you're where you're supposed to be in the parts of the curriculum that make you less comfortable, which in your case may be what made me more comfortable. Things like literacy or history or, So in the places where you are less comfortable, you can't, So you can't diminish math because that's not your comfort zone. Right. And that would basically be, I would be saying to the teachers here, if you were a client, here are the questions I have for you to ponder, and I'm going to come back next month and see how you feel about those questions. Because part of the job of a consultant is just to make people aware. Yeah. When you become aware, you start to look at things a little differently. So I'm just going to say, Alison, be aware that there may be students who get caught up in the excitement of the rest of the class or don't want you to think they're not happy. Yeah. And they're less comfortable. So even spending a little time doing something like, okay, we're going to do some more literacy stuff, and let's see if the kids act equally excited. Am I perceiving this excitement differently because it's my excitement? Yeah. Yeah. So now Alison will never start a sentence with the word I again when she talks to me about her class, probably. But it is a key thing, and even when parents are listening to teachers talk about a curriculum, listen to how they talk about it. Are they talking to you about it based on the goals and standards that we want to be able to have children practice and maybe achieve? Yeah. Or are they talking to you about what they love to do? And honestly, when I think back over the years of having observed many open school nights, and conducted them myself as a teacher, observed them as a school director and a consultant, I think there are a lot of I phrases. I am really into math and we're going to do this, this, and this. I am really into, but that's it. You have to make sure you're still doing the curriculum across the board, which I'm sure you are, but But you also have to make sure that if I'm going to adapt, that it's based on the interests of the children.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard because I've had classes where the kids were very interested in science concepts, like the physics of what was happening.
Yeah.
And it pulled me out of my comfort zone because I'm less knowledgeable about that, but that's what the kids were interested in.
The kids are interested in. Yeah.
So then I have to read up on it and figure it out. And because I have to go follow them on that path.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. That's
I think
my
also,
answer to that.
if we're going to, like I did, I guess I added something to the curriculum. I still made sure I could follow the standards that were for my grade level, you know? Right. So it wasn't like we were venturing out into this like uncharted territory. It was like, okay, no, I could still add this and still maintain following the standards, which I think there's maybe some teachers that just kind of do their own thing and aren't even aware. So just always be aware of your standards and your goals if you're going to add something like I did. Sorry. Okay.
No reason to be sorry. No reason to be sorry. You know, my role, it seems, in education is just to build awareness. And so I just did what I do. I build awareness and ask some questions.
It's also so different for me because, like, I did pre-K for a very long time. This is my first year doing kindergarten, and pre-K, it very much was very emergent, very like you get to kind of decide what the themes are based on the interests of the children. And when I went to kindergarten, they're like, nope, here's what you need to teach them in this order. There is no deviating from this. And I'm like, okay, but they don't even care about plants right now because it's fall. So like, it was like, you know, and we did it, but it was like, so then I thought, like, let me give them a little bit of time where they can explore something that they are interested in.
There's nothing wrong with that. So you have, and it's true of many public school systems, that you have a very, very prescriptive curriculum. Yes. Although that has become more and more common in every preschool, early childhood setting, that you will see curriculums that are a little more prescriptive, that tell teachers, here's what to do. And the reason for that is because of the definition of curriculum. It includes the plans for doing it. Yeah. So, okay, it's prescriptive, but within that prescription of what to do, and within that prescriptive curriculum, there still needs to be teacher flexibility. So if you're using that flexibility to expand upon the science part of the curriculum because the kids are super interested in it, then that's adapting, not modifying. Yeah. Right. And I hope that teachers who are listening who have a more prescriptive curriculum are now thinking to themselves, how can I still do this curriculum the way I'm supposed to and adapt based on the interests and needs of the children in my room, but without changing the standards and goals that we're supposed to be reaching for, or the method by which hopefully is a good method we're supposed to be reaching for it. Right. And Alison mentioned project-based learning. We have another episode, I believe, where we talked about the difference between projects, crafts, and arts a while ago. Please look for that if you've never heard it. Project-based learning is not creating a craft. So you can go look for that episode. Project-based learning is an excellent approach to early education. It's one that I recommend for schools all the time, whether they're going to spend a lot of money on a curriculum, a little money on a curriculum, or no money on a curriculum. You still need a project-based learning approach with young children. We've learned that over the years. And it doesn't mean that we're not exposing them to content area. Of course we are. They're still learning the letters starting with their name and the words they know, like logos. They are still counting and getting the basics of math and geometry. They're still doing all those things, but within the context of deeper thinking skills. So I'm glad to hear you're doing project-based learning, because that's awesome. And that's a wonderful adaptation to the sort of curriculum that you have.
Right.
All right. So now that everybody's tired of hearing the word curriculum in this episode, it doesn't sound like a word anymore, folks, does it? It doesn't really sound like a word to me anymore. No. I hope you'll go back. I guess to sum up, I hope you'll go back with some questions about the curriculum, the goals, the standards, and the approach. The more that families can support this system at home, the better the children fare. And if you only have little pockets of time with your children, and as a working mom, I totally get that when my kids were little. If you only have little pockets of time with your children, always try to make them valuable in some way. And you can do that by understanding these goals and perspective of your child's curriculum. Yeah. If you're working in a school and you're thinking, my curriculum is not based on standards, or I don't know if it's based on standards, I hope you go back with the question and look for your state standards. And I hope that if you are working with a curriculum, that you stay true to that. That's what the children need us to do. They need us to stay true to that in a way that they can ingest the information.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we have an excuse in the year 2021 for running childcare, preschool, or the early childhood years in a way that does not teach those standards. I just don't think we have an excuse for it anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah.
You know,
no, we know better now.
And it's honestly one of the privileges of the work that I do, that I get to help people to make that change and be more focused. But that doesn't mean that the environment isn't good. That doesn't mean it's still a play-based environment. It's still based on fun and frolic and, fun and just inspiring children. And you can do that. You can do all that. So for the people who wrote to us and said, we struggle because we tend to lean one way or the other, you can do both.
You can do both. Yeah.
You can do There's both. So much information out there about it. You're listening to this podcast, so you're willing to learn.
So,
and, that's why there are places who have technical assistance specialists to help them, consultants to help them, coaches to help them, whoever it is you work with, to help move along that very long path of change.
Yeah.
So I must say we've changed a lot in the last year or so.
We have
some really great episodes coming up, so stick with us. Alison and I were talking about next week's topic, and we're excited about it.
I'm excited for that one.
So stick with us. Alison's going to let you know how to get in touch with us, because like I said, this episode was inspired by our preschool peeps, so keep inspiring us.
Right. So if you want to be an inspiration to us, or if you just want to contact us to talk about this, or any topic that we've had in the past or future, you can find us on Facebook at How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast. You can also go to our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. There is a comment section there, or it's contact me. I'm not sure.
You froze for a second. You're back. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Or now I lost what I was saying, but I think I got it all in there.
I'm sorry. The contact section of our website, Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Facebook. Yeah. That's it, right?
That's how you contact us.
It. Yeah. Yeah. It'll drop an email right in our inbox or in our Messenger. You can reach us on Facebook through Messenger, and you can just write us that way. We love hearing from you guys.
Okay. Yes. So stay the course, folks. And we wish you much hope.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week
on
the podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye.